Voters are showing signs of dissent against the Trump administration as Democrats are projected to win in 3 crucial races overnight. Here in New York City, Zohran Mamdani caps his political ascent as the mayor-elect. Mikey Sherrill, who sought to tie her opponent to President Trump, is now New Jersey's governor-elect. And in Virginia, voters chose Democrat Abigail Spanberger as their next governor. All of them come from various factions of the Democratic Party. But across the board, affordability was a key issue. You're looking at CBS News exit polling showing among Mamdani voters, cost of living was the most important issue for 73% of them. Among Sherrill voters, 38% were most concerned about the economy. And among all voters in Virginia, the economy was the most important issue for 48% of those who headed to the polls. CBS News' Jared Hill brings us the latest on these major races.
An election night sweep for Democrats. In New York City, Zohran Mamdani, a 34-year-old Democratic socialist, is set to become the Big Apple's first Muslim mayor.
Tonight, you have delivered a mandate for change.
Next door in New Jersey, voters propelled to Democratic Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill to the governorship after a tight race.
The future is now. Roll up your sleeves, let your passion flow. The country we carry in our hearts is waiting.
History made in Virginia. Former Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger is projected to become the Commonwealth's first woman governor.
Virginia chose pragmatism over partisanship.
On the other side of the country, California voters overwhelmingly appear to have approved Governor Gavin Newsom's Prop 50, a plan to temporarily redraw the state's congressional map to favor Democrats, a response to efforts by Republicans in Texas and other red states at the request of President Trump.
We need to see other states meet this moment head on as well, to recognize what we're up against in 2026.
CBS News exit polls show that for many voters, the economy and President Trump played a big role this election. It's something that I heard echoed from some voters here in New York City.
I think this vote, even though it's a local election, did have major impacts on how the 2 major parties have control across the country.
Overnight on social media, President Trump said pollsters blamed the GOP losses in part on the history-making government shutdown and posted this cryptic message. And so it begins. Jared Hill, CBS News, New York.
CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand joins us from the White House with more on this morning. Good morning, Natalie. So as we just saw here, Democrats really did win big in what is largely considered a test of President Trump's second term. So how else is the president reacting?
Yeah, well, that last post, and so it begins, was in direct response to Mamdani's victory speech last night, posting it during that speech as it was unfolding. And in response to the larger Democratic sweep, Jared alluded to it, but on social media, the president posted in all caps, Trump was not on the ballot and the shutdown were the 2 reasons that Republicans lost elections tonight, according to pollsters, not giving more details about those pollsters. But, you know, even though the president was not on the ballot, in speaking to a number of voters, at least here in Virginia, Democrats told us that they were turning out of concern for Trump administration policies. Now, notably, the president did not endorse the Republican in Virginia's gubernatorial race, but he did throw his support behind New Jersey's Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican candidate in that gubernatorial race, even posting on social media up until really the last hours of polling, trying to turn voters out. And he also threw his support on election eve behind Andrew Cuomo, really trying to draw a contrast between working with what he called a bad Democrat and Mamdani, who he has labeled a communist. Now, on Prop 50 in California, he has called that a giant scam. Now that it's passed, he's posting on social media urging Senate Republicans to once again get rid of the filibuster to pass Republican legislation, his agenda, and also voter reform. also calling for voter ID and no mail-in ballots, clearly looking ahead to next year's midterms. And Errol, these topics will probably come up next hour when he is set to make remarks before Senate Republicans here at the White House at a breakfast as they talk about all these issues and also the record government shutdown.
All right, and we'll stay close for updates from that breakfast. Natalie, thank you very much. Let's take a look at the bigger picture now with Democratic strategist Chuck Rocha, you see him on the left, and Kevin Sheridan on the right, a Republican strategist and a former RNC spokesperson. Good morning to you both, gentlemen. First, let's hear from New York City's mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani after last night's big win.
New York, tonight you have delivered a mandate for change, a mandate for a new kind of politics. We won because we insisted that no longer would politics be something that is done to us. Now it is something that we do.
So, Chuck, you know, our CBS News exit polling found Mamdani attracted 77% of voters under 30. So what could Democrats do now to replicate the same in the midterms?
1 year ago, I sat here and talked about Donald Trump overperforming in every single place across America, and that was a fact. Well, 1 year later, Democrats have overperformed in every single county that was there where there was an election last night, from Georgia to New York. And the through line, Errol, from all of this is one issue, and that is affordability. People are tired of paying higher utility bills, really tired of paying higher insurance. Insurance is a big deal. We knocked on 100,000 doors in New Jersey over the last 4 weeks, and insurance premiums were the number one thing we heard, along with utility bills. Democrats have to focus back on affordability issues, and that's why you saw this blue wave last night. Is this an indicator for 26? It's a really good sign, but affordability is the reason the Democrats are on top this morning.
And Kevin, what do you make of that? Because CBS News exit polling did show that President Trump was a factor for many of these voters in these races while he was not on the ballot. So what can Republicans learn from last night's losses?
A very rough night, underperformed in every single, race that we had. Look, it was likely going to be a blue wave. We didn't see it in the recent polling coming up, but it traditionally always is. Chuck's right. This is a tough night for Republicans, but they need to get the government back open and focus on the next year's agenda to get us into 2026, because we've got to keep the House, keep the Senate, which we likely will keep the Senate. But this was a tough night. Donald Trump, he'll change the narrative today, though. I assure you that.
Well, let's speak more about the shutdown, now the longest in history. So Chuck, Democrats perhaps have a winning message, but is that in being anti-Trump or pro-Democrat economic plan? What can Democrats really solidify out of this and offer voters in the midterms?
I've said this since the day after the election. You have to do both. We have been really good as a party at demonizing Donald Trump, but very bad at saying what we're for. And at the minimum, at these elections, we said we were for bringing the cost down. Now we have to help bring the cost down. That's why Donald Trump lost after year with all of these elections, because he promised folks this, and the anxiety he tapped into was very real. I was talking to my son this morning about his utility bill in Pittsburgh. This is something cutting across everything, but now Democrats have to run on talking about what Trump's done, but what are you going to do to bring prices down, mainly around insurance, mainly about premiums, and the everyday costs that you have to sit at your kitchen table and fill out your checkbook for every 30 days.
And Kevin, we knew that the economy would be a big issue for voters. Things are tough out there for many people. But President Trump in Virginia, for example, wouldn't outright endorse Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears. How big of a factor do you think that was in her loss?
Well, I assume the RGA and Winsome Sears and the RNC did polling that said that it wouldn't have helped. Look, Virginia has become actually a blue state now. It's got so many federal workers in it. He did do town halls and rallies, but look, she under fundraised. She didn't, hit her numbers. it was a tough night in Virginia. But as far as the affordability, which I totally agree with Chuck, that's driving everything. Democrats are now responsible for a lot of that now. I mean, what is Spanberger going to do in Virginia to get the cost of electricity down? I don't see any policies that she's got that would do that. So, yeah, this is going to be a big fight going into 2026. And look, affordability is a big problem, but I don't see Democrats having a good answer to it right now.
Yeah. All right. We will have more on this at the bottom of the hour for our viewers. Chuck, Rocha, and Kevin Sheridan, thank you both very much.